The conceptual mode of functioning is the distinctive human characteristic or trait. It is the level of consciousness proper to man. Tonight I want to begin discussing what is the conceptual level of consciousness. Precisely what does it consist of? What does it mean to think conceptually? Remember that a concept or abstraction is the identification of that which is in common among two or more particulars. It is a mental integration of two or more perceptual concretes or of two or more abstractions. Let's briefly consider in what manner concepts operate within a human consciousness, what it is that they make possible, what it is that man's conceptual faculty makes possible when and if it's utilized properly. Last week, when we talked about the nature of the conscious mind, we discussed the fact that man can hold only a limited number of mental units in his mind at any given time. He can hold only a limited amount of material in conscious awareness. This is one of the reasons, as we said, that he requires a subconscious, a storehouse for all of his past thinking and observations on which he is not presently focused. Now, it's also the case that the mind can deal only with particulars, with specifics, with a something, with this idea or that, this memory or that, this image or that. Reality contains and consists of only concretes, and the human mind can deal only with concrete units of knowledge. But a concept, which is itself a concrete, a something, is an automatic integration of an enormous number of other concretes. A concept integrates perceptual concretes into a single unit, into a new particular, which stands for and symbolizes a whole class of other particulars. By naming that which is in common among various particulars, by naming and holding it in the form of a single mental unit, a concept immeasurably expands the quantity of particulars that a mind can hold, retain, and work with, thereby immeasurably expanding the power and range of the mind. In the same manner, higher-level, wider concepts serve as the automatic integrators of classes of lower-level, narrower concepts. They integrate other conceptual concretes. Just as the concept dog integrates a whole class of perceptual concretes, that is, all dogs of whatever size, shape, or variety, so the concept animal integrates a whole class of lower-level conceptual concretes, such as the concepts of dog, horse, lion, and so forth. Like the subconscious, then, each concept is a storehouse in itself, synopsizing and symbolizing huge quantities of information. Concepts are the microfilm of the mind. Consider how primitive and limited would be the mental operations of which we would be capable if we could be aware of, think about, and deal with mentally only separate perceptual concretes. Only this chair and that chair and that chair, but never chairness. Never the abstraction which holds and integrates in a single mental unit every chair that ever did exist or that ever will exist. Or consider what would happen to our mental capacity if we could be aware of the concept chair, but we couldn't build abstractions out of abstractions, couldn't store and integrate less complex abstractions by means of more complex, wider ones. If we could not form the abstraction furniture, or the still broader, more inclusive abstraction, manufactured object, or the still broader abstraction, material entity. It is abstractions that are the tools of human thought, the tools of logical inference. They are that which makes human thought possible. If, for instance, you're considering the issue of individual rights, think of how much that single concept subsumes, how many different concretes and how many other concepts it pertains to, retains, and integrates, such as the concept of freedom of speech and any concrete expression of that concept, the concept of freedom of the press and its concrete expressions, the concept and any concrete expression of a free market. Imagine what would happen instead if you tried to think about social political issues, and instead of being able to use the concept of rights, you had to spell out and focus on in detail each time every concrete which that concept summarizes and subsumes. Or consider this situation. A friend comes to see you, and he doesn't tell you the purpose of his visit, but he begins to talk about his troubles and his financial hardships. Then he throws in a few social documentaries about how business is bad generally and the stock market is slipping. Then he begins discussing the importance of friendship and of friends standing by each other. Listening to him, you have difficulty in following his conversation, in knowing what he's getting at, what it all adds up to, what it is that links together the various points he's making. Whereas one single concept would have brought the whole conversation into focus and would have enabled you to follow it without struggling with the individual concretes he's presenting. The concept lone. Now, I said in a previous lecture that a rational, healthy psychoepistemology releases human intelligence. That although it may be the case that the upper limit of a given individual's intelligence is determined by the structure of the brain, nevertheless, most people don't use the intellectual capacity they do possess because of faulty, inefficient psychoepistemologies. The statement that a healthy psychoepistemology releases intelligence could be translated to say the proper use of the conceptual faculty makes it possible for men to connect and deal with a wider range of abstractions. Intelligence means the mind's ability to deal with concepts, to connect abstractions. It pertains to the degree to which this ability is possessed and exercised. When we consider the intelligence of any organism, whether it be man or animal, we're considering the degree of that organism's cognitive capacity. When we speak of man, whose distinctive cognitive capacity is the ability to deal with abstractions, then we measure a man's intelligence by the width and complexity of abstractions that he can connect, integrate, and work with. Some men, for instance, cannot hold a long chain of logical arguments. A man may be able to go from point A to point B to point C in a chain of reasoning. But when he reaches point D, then A, B, and C are lost. He can't retain them. And in most instances, one must look for at least a crucial part of the reason in his method of forming his concepts, or in his failure to form fundamental concepts, or in his means of connecting and relating concepts to one another and to the facts of reality. It is only man who has the ability to ask questions of nature and the universe.